So this is the second day in a row that I had an interesting question from my children. And it was my 11-year-old son today. And he asked me this question while we were reading the Bible, or should I say afterward. And it led to us reading the Bible more. He said, Daddy, I've been thinking about this. If God only made Adam and Eve, how did he populate the whole world? That question was a game changer because quite honestly, I haven't really processed it and thought about it much. But me, him, and the rest of my children, we sat down today and we walked through the scripture to find out if God created Adam and Eve, how did he populate the rest of the world? Where did the other races come from? And this question was great because at our home, we leave room for dialogue, questions. And so there is nothing taboo within our house. So we try to just leave the door open. And so we got into why, if God only created Adam and Eve, how did the world become populated? And another follow-up question that my son asked, he said, Daddy, did did Cain and Adam's son, did they marry their sisters, their relatives? Because if you look at Leviticus chapter 18, the Lord forbids marrying family members, especially sisters and close relatives. That the scripture in not Deuteronomy, but Leviticus chapter 18 talks about how these things are abomination to have sexual relations with that. So all that to say is we had a discussion and it was great. And I believe these are the discussions that we should have all the time within our homes. Talking about money, talking about sex, talking about relationships, talking about politics, talking about what you don't believe, talking about how you feel. These things are important dialogues to have within your home, but also within your nation. Because these conversations help to build our nation. If we don't have freedom to have these open dialogues about what we believe, questions about things that we don't understand, discussions about what we don't believe. So healthy debates are important, where you can walk away and say, okay, we don't agree, but at least we had a chance to talk about what we didn't agree about. So getting into this question, if God made Adam and Eve, where did everybody else come from? So one of the things that we did discover is that Adam lived over 930 years. In fact, let me get my Bible so that we can look at that clip. Over 930 years Adam lived. And so when you look at Genesis chapter, I think it's chapter 2 or 3. Bear with me. It's Genesis chapter 5. Verse 1 says, this is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made he him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them and called their name Adam in the day when they were created. And Adam lived 130 years, and begat a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. And then verse 5 tells us, and all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. But verse 4 says this, and the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. So as we look at this particular account of Adam, we can see that he had many more sons and daughters. He lived all of these years. And so the real question, that the reality is that he had more sons and daughters. And so the earth was populated from Adam and Eve. So obviously, based on this account, Adam's sons married some of their daughters, some of their sisters, and maybe even some of their nieces and nieces. Right? It happened like that. So because that's where we came from, and so the question is, does God allow incest now? When and the reality is no, he forbids it. And in some of the commentary I was reading, and I read this with my son while we were there sitting on the couch, it talked about how, and I'm not sure how true it is, but it talks about how back then, before sin entered into the world, that there was no evil, right? And so their bodies were perfectly normal so that they could have children, right? And we don't know if when the actual account happened, when Eve sinned against God. It doesn't tell us that was like day one. It doesn't tell us that was before they even had children. So, but what the commentary talked about is that possibly that because their bodies were perfect, they were able to have children with their, they were able to marry their siblings and have children and not have any kind of birth defects because they were perfect. But after the fall of man, that's where sin entered into the world and our bodies became defective. And so if you try to go out and marry and have sex with your relatives that are closely aligned to you now, birth defects may come because of sin. So I thought those were interesting concepts. And we're still reading over it now and processing it. But I'm glad me and my son were able to have the conversation right now about what that looks like. And I say to you, is had a conversation. Don't put it off. Don't try to shun it. If you don't know the answer, just say, I don't know it. Like I told myself, I don't know. Let's look at it together and dive into it. And it's okay. But it's not okay to stay ignorant. If you got a question and you need to take a quest, dive into it. Dive into it with other people because you don't need to know it all. But if something comes up, dive into it and find out what you need to be talking about. Dive into the question and learn about it. Learn together. And I'm telling you, when you learn together, you can be better together. And so after that conversation, me and my son began to talk more about other stuff. And we're processing things even now today. And we're going to see where we're going to go. But let me know in the comments about this particular subject. If you got some resources about what happened, if you agree, and even if you disagree, let's have a dialogue. Let's talk through about what that looks like, because at the end of the day, we're all learning about various things. Have a good one. If this video blessed you, I just encourage you to share it, like it, and leave some comments about what you heard about in here, what you liked, what you didn't like, and let's continue to grow together. Take care. God bless you.